Well, hi, my name is Erah, and I like to call myself a creative. For a long time, I only introduced myself as a poet or a spoken word artist, but since the beginning of my artistic journey, I've definitely delved into other realms. So at this point, I'd like to be known as just an artist who does whatever it is that she wants to do. And yeah, that's who I am. Um, Funny enough, dance was my first love. When I was younger, I did a lot of dances, choreographies at lunch, and my parents and my bigger brother have this really beautiful story that they keep telling me that I actually was dancing before I could walk. So apparently, I would crawl to the wall and then just find my balance and then just kind of move. So that was definitely my first love. And when it came to elementary school and secondary school, improv was my thing. Okay, I was probably one of the only black girls doing it, but I didn't care. I loved improv. I loved how much it challenged my mind and my creativity, and I was just really good at it. So I did that. And in the beginning of, like, I guess, my adulthood, because of tumultuous experiences, I discovered poetry. I had to write to let my feelings out. And then one day I decided that I was going to share said feelings. And I went on stage and people seemed to really resonate. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Actually, when it comes to poetry, the person who, influenced me into starting to write was actually Tupac. This girl in my class gave me her book, The Rose That Grew from Concrete, and I remember reading it and I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to touch people. This is what I want to do to leave my mark. I was just very inspired with how transparent and candid and sometimes heartbreaking he was, but also very hopeful. And, I like to think that I'm also a competitive person in the sense that I was like, okay, how much can I do with words and where can it take me? And let's see where it goes. So, yeah, a lot of Tupac. I love Jill Scott. I think her first album, Words and Sounds, please correct me if that's not the title. I just listened to it. It's a mix of her singing, her poetry, a little bit of rapping, and I always loved it. I just feel like poetry speaks to the soul, and because I am also very musically inclined, just the way she married everything really did that. And and she's a black woman and she's beautiful, and we all love Jill Scott. And I love J. Cole. I know it's a very I'm just one of those, people who think he's boring, that's their business, that's their problem, but J. Cole speaks to my soul. So whenever I need inspiration or I want to write or I want to try to provoke some type of, artistic endeavor, I usually play some J. Cole in the background at some point in the night. Yeah. That question always gets to me because I never fully know how to answer because I feel like it wouldn't be fully truthful. Sometimes I'll just be kicking it and then bam, an idea comes and then I'll write it down in my notepad. And then whenever I have time to put really pen to paper, that's when I'll develop it. There are other times where I feel like I need to get things off my chest, and then that's when I'll do the whole dimming the lights, the little music, maybe the little candle if I'm feeling fancy. And then hopefully something comes. Sometimes it doesn't. And I just be chilling there. But nature definitely helps. Whenever I'm near water, especially, I always feel just this rush of ideas and thoughts and words, and I just get to kind of just put them together. And sometimes, just for fun, I go on Google and I type synonyms, and then whenever I find a word that I don't know or I've never used, I challenge myself to write a poem with it in it. So it's really hard to tell. Like, I don't really have a specific way of going about creating. I'm just very open to however it comes to me. And it's really one of those things where now, because I do very much prioritize my art, sometimes I could be talking to somebody on the phone and it's like, listen, I'm going to hang up and call you back because I just had an idea. Or if I'm out with some friends or, I'm doing something, if an idea is pressing on my head, then I'm just gonna drop everything and then go tend to it because that's really what it is. And for my spiritual people out there that could understand what I'm about to say next, sometimes it also feels like I'm not doing anything when it comes to the art. I'm just getting a download from somewhere and then I just put it on paper. And it's at that point where I really realize that sometimes, well, oftentimes, art has nothing to do with me or how I feel, but I'm just a vessel um, for something or someone. So, yeah. Well, especially my book, my first book, Late Bloomer, I definitely, wow, it's actually so funny to think about. Yeah, I was going through a lot, going through grief, heartbreaks, just not understanding what life was about, feeling lost, and it just really felt like I had just this heaviness on my chest and just like this dark cloud in my brain at all times. And it really, art just really became a means of survival where I was like, listen, I can't keep carrying all of this, so I'm just gonna have to put it down somewhere. So at first that's really what it was about, just letting everything out. And then at some point when I started sharing with people and seeing how much maybe I put words to thoughts that they were having or feelings or emotions that they weren't able to express for themselves, that's when I realized, okay, maybe this is part of my purpose as well. And I could use this method that I found of healing myself and then maybe hopefully healing other people. But yeah, definitely therapeutic in the sense that I also have some control in the sense that I decide what I share and what I don't share. But yeah, art definitely helped me through some dark times, and it's also like a guide. It's also a guide. It's like a memory book as well. Sometimes I read certain things that I wrote and I'm like, I was going through it, but I don't remember it. So it's also just like a message to my future self. Like, listen, I was struggling now and you don't even remember it. So whatever you're going through now, future us is not going to remember it. So I think that that's pretty much why I would categorize it as therapy. Hmm. That's a very, I think it's changed over the years in terms of what I'm allowing myself to dive into, especially when it comes to songwriting and working with other people. Yeah, collaborating with other artists is definitely something that's newer to me. Before, I was in my room just writing about with a box of tissue and stuff, and now just putting myself out there, wanting to collaborate with other people. It's very fun, but it's also very taxing at times because you have to manage your own emotions, your own thoughts, and then take into consideration other people, and it can be very energizing, but it could also be draining. So that's definitely something that's new. I also think that I get more courageous with time. So, you tip your toe in the water a little bit and then you start to swim a little, but now it's just like, oh, I dive head first and I'm underwater as long as I need to. That's definitely a difference. I definitely know that art has allowed me to become a better version of myself. I'm more driven, I'm more courageous, I have a lot more empathy. Just because I get to know myself better each time I create, I think it just also allows me to be able to see other people, especially other creators, as they present themselves in their art in comparison to how I just see them in the day to day. I believe also that, the more risk I take, the more, I feel myself and the more it pushes me to keep trying new things and etc. And before I used to be very, I just hated embarrassment. Okay. I hated feeling embarrassed. I hated feeling like an amateur. And now, if I'm in a room full of people who are more knowledgeable than me in something, I feel like that's exactly where I need to be. And I have no reservations about trying new things and figuring out what I'm good at, what I'm not so good at, or I need work on. And yeah, that's definitely the changes I've been seeing in myself when it comes to art and just my participation overall and how I show up in the world, even since I've been able to qualify myself as an artist, because that was an issue for a long time. I would never introduce myself as an artist. I was just like, oh, I do this, I do that, and sometimes I do poetry. But now, no matter what job title I hold, the first thing I say to people about myself, like, yes, I'm an artist. This is what I do, and everything else is secondary. So that's definitely the difference between who I am now and who I was when I was starting out. So, the thing about being honest about yourself and your journey, especially in written form, is that it also involves other people. So, I had to be very mindful before publishing my book of how, I don't know, certain members of my family could feel, or how, I don't know, some exes could feel, or whoever um, had been a part of my journey up until that moment. So I tried to be as mindful as I could, but also art is art and it's my story to tell. So if you do not want somebody to, paint you in a bad light, then just don't be bad to people, I guess. But yeah, that was definitely a big obstacle for me. And also, um, in my book, I did for the first time talk about some experiences that I've had, especially when it comes to sexual assaults and stuff. And I hadn't told my family at that point, so I knew it was going to be published, and I knew that other people would be able to read about it. So that definitely pushed me to talk about certain things that I had been holding on in for a long time. So that's definitely one of the struggles. Like that's what I meant when I say art really pushes you to be vulnerable and to just really be an open book. And for some people, especially who I was before, that's very intimidating. But now I definitely consider it a strength. So that's kind of how I overcame it, because it's like, okay, by the time, and I've even said this in my book, by the time you've read this, I'm already over it. So there's nothing that you could hold against me. So I think that that's really what it is. But another obstacle, funds. Listen, in this capitalistic world, wanting to just be an artist, wanting to just kick it and write or paint or just dance, this world is really not forged for people like us. So we really always need to break barriers while paying bills, while convincing ourselves and fighting our imposter syndrome, while convincing our parents that art is something feasible that we can really attain and that we should follow our dreams. But as immigrants, they're like, listen, no, we need you to be a doctor. We need you to be this. So yeah, that's definitely another obstacle, which is like fighting imposter syndrome, because everything in the world wants me to just not be an artist, but everything about myself and my soul is screaming that I am. So it's like every day that I just want to do what feels natural to me also feels like I'm riding against the world, and that really gets tiring. Well, obviously, publishing my first book independently was a highlight of my artistic journey. I made it a point to write it in my list, or on my bucket list. And so, knowing all of the literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into creating it, knowing how courageous, once again, I had to be to just pour my heart out on paper and just put it out and just hope that other people will resonate with it or even want to interact with it when it comes down to it. So when I saw the orders lining up, lining up, lining up, lining up, lining up, I even started to get overwhelmed. And it's really funny because I had to do multiple printing copies. Like I only had, I think the first batch was 100, because I'm like, okay, listen, if I sell 100 books, I'm good. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, girl, like you need to order more batches. And That was definitely a highlight, not necessarily because of the number. It's just also being able to engage with other people and having their feedback, and just people were sending me the play by play, like, oh, I'm on this poem, oh, this line, that bar, oh, girl, this happened to me too, thank you so much for saying that. And I think also one of the most beautiful moments that I've had were getting messages from men kind of reacting to poetry that were specifically written for women, and also them being like, yo, listen, my girl had been trying to tell me this for a long time and I didn't get what she was saying, but then when she sent me that poem, I know exactly what she meant. Or it'd be like, oh, listen, I know that my little sister went through this too, and I didn't really know how to talk to her about it or what to do to help her. So I sent her your poem, and that definitely helped her and helped her release some of her emotions. And just, yeah, I think it was definitely, ooh, I have goosebumps. Jeez. But yeah, my favorite part was definitely having people come back to me and tell me what their favorite pieces were. And it's so funny because as an artist, you kind of have your idea of what you think are going to be the fan favorites, and then you figure out that, oh, okay, yeah, they're holding their way, but that this poem that you thought maybe didn't even, or wasn't even supposed to be in the book, and then you see that somebody hits you up to tell you, no, this is my favorite one, thank you so much for writing it. So that was definitely a big, 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 big moment in my artistic journey. But following, maybe 2 years later, yeah, 2 years later, when we recorded the audiobook for Late Bloomer, that even took it to a whole other level because I got to experience my book through other people, and also just seeing how they pronounce certain words, or like their intonations, or how they view the poem, or how it would come out of other people's literal voices, throat chakras, if you will. It was definitely a surreal moment to think like, wow, yes, I might have written the poems, but they don't belong to me anymore. Like, they belong to us, and this is community, and this is a beautiful moment that we all share. And something that I came up with in my room when I was depressed and crying and just a mess got to grow into this beautiful thing that no matter what happens moving forward, I can say I did that. So those were definitely beautiful moments. But I will also like to say the one and only time that my mom got to see me perform, that, oh, I'm gonna cry. Ooh, yeah, the one time my mom got to see me perform meant a lot to me because I know that for the longest time she didn't get it. She didn't get what I do. She didn't get the impact. She didn't get the importance. And one time she came, I had a performance at like this conference, and I could just remember seeing her. Like, I looked at her while I was performing, and just seeing the pride in her, like in her eyes and stuff, and how she reacted to me afterwards, and even seeing her see other people come up to me and talk to me about my piece. And even before my performance, she got to see me rehearse and see how serious I am about it. So that was definitely a beautiful moment that I definitely cherish. So yeah. To be very honest, it's all about me first. Um, I create for myself first and foremost. I think that in a lot of other areas, I prioritize others. But when it comes to art, it's about me. It's all about me. And then I decide what I share with the world. But I feel like the older I get, the more that little balance seems to disappear. It's like whatever I do create for myself always ends up being shared. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like I feel like, I don't know. I don't consider art a hobby. It's just my essence. Like when I'm kicking it by myself, when no one is looking, when no one is around, where I have nobody to impress, there are nobody's, caring about my existence at that very moment, I'm still creating. So that's how I know that it means something to me. So I really do create for myself. I create for fun. I create when I'm feeling down. I create when I'm bored. I'm just always creating. Even when I'm resting, I'm creating. And that's something that people sleep on. That's definitely something people sleep on. Rest is so important in the creative process because you could feel like you're not doing anything, but your brain is always, always, always coming up with something. Even if it's not communicating it to you at the moment, it's always it's always doing something. So that's why sometimes we feel like, oh, I have a spark of creativity. No, you know, you've been on snooze and then your brain has been creating it in the back, not alerting you because it didn't need for your input at that moment until it was time for execution. So that's really what I would say. Unless I'm writing a song for someone else. That's the one occurrence where I literally remove myself and I have the artist in mind, their tone of voice, their type of music, their genre, the notes I can see them hitting, even if I can't personally hit them. And yeah, that's the only time where I really can say that I remove myself completely out of the process in order to write for someone else, which was very challenging at first because you're so attached to art. You know, it's like, oh, these are my words. This is what I did, and then all of a sudden it doesn't belong to you anymore. And now because I value collaboration so much, I actually enjoy that part where it's like I get to fully remove myself but still see something grow and see the impact that somebody else has on said thing, and it's just beautiful. But yeah, so whenever I write songs for other people, that's the only time that it's not about me, but the rest, it's all about me. Because they tell me that's that's literally the only thing that convinces me that it's true. Like I said, I've dealt a lot with imposter syndrome until I've had people come up to me and be like, okay, no, I needed you to write this for me. Or yeah, it's very interesting how maybe your deep darkest secret that you are scared to share is definitely the key to one, your relief, but also to someone else's. So it's like we all have sometimes the same locks, and you have a different key. You have the green key and I have the yellow key, but my lock needs to be opened by the green key and vice versa. And I think that's what artists do. It's just like, listen, we just go around opening each other's locks. And whenever somebody gets to do that for me, whenever I listen to the J. Cole's of the world, the Jill Scotts, the Janae Eiko's, and et cetera, I feel like that's what they do for me. So whenever anybody seems to even have the slightest semblance of just relief out of what I write, I'm like, okay, what I do makes sense. So I think that that's what it was. But yeah, if nobody was telling me anything, I'd be like, listen, at least I'm good. Funny enough, I would love to have an affirmations project just with a lot of, soothing sounds and just affirmations. And I've definitely been having that on my mind a lot. I would love that. And if I woke up tomorrow with $1 million in my account, what I would do is definitely open a space 24 hours where people who need just relief from the outside world could come and they would be able to interact with any type of art medium that feels right to them. It could be paintings, it could be music, it could be sound baths, it could be all of that. So um, that's definitely something that is in the back of my head where I'm like, okay, the second I have the funds and the second I have more time and whatever else obstacles always come up whenever you're trying to get your mind to do something, that's definitely something that I would prioritize. And also I really find that as long as I'm being very honest with who I am, how I feel, what I experience, I help other people do the same. And I think that that's the first step into healing as a whole in general. I feel like people who aren't honest with themselves or who don't have the capacity to just look at themselves in the mirror won't be able to look for help or heal or just better themselves in general. So I just feel like it's so easy um, to forget that, we're humans. We want to sometimes hide and run from our emotions and from the truth and from our pains and just those little dark, corners in our hearts and in our brains. But I just feel like courage is very contagious. So whenever you see one person be able to do it, maybe you're inspired to do it for yourself. Or maybe if it's not, you're not courageous enough at that moment, at least it'll be in the back of your mind for the moment where you will be. So I definitely would say that as long as I keep being true to myself and listen to what it is that my intuition tells me, the pull that I feel, because that's what it is for me. Creativity is a pull. Even when I want to ignore it, it'll be like, girl, like, we need to do something. And just as I keep evolving as a human, an artist, a woman, a black woman at that, I there's not going to be a shortage of experiences, and as long as I'm able to put them on paper, hopefully it'll help the next one make more sense of what she's going through and maybe help her avoid some of the mistakes I've made. So yeah. Step one, find the nearest open mic and just do it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be rehearsed for 95 hours. You just need to be seen. That's step one. And you need to get comfortable with the idea of being seen. That's step one. Step two, find like-minded individuals. So you have to find community. When it comes to this art thing, as much as we can be individuals, when it comes to really growing and learning and just being inspired, you really need to find your community. So there's always some type of, open mics, or if there aren't in your region, then maybe you should be the person to start them. I'm sure that there are people who are also looking for the opportunity. Three, research is important. Research is important. Do your Googles. Um, find somebody that you look up to, that you want to emulate, and then just find out about them. How did they start? Where did they get their start? How do they do things? And then see how you can mold um, that process into being your own. You have to be honest. um, I know that there are a lot of phonies who make a lot of money, but the real recognize real. And the last thing you want to do, especially if you're a true artist at heart, is come off phony. So you really need to do what feels right to you, to your soul. Things that, if, God forbid, you were hit by amnesia and you forgot that that's the piece that you created, that's the book that you wrote, that's the song that you made, that you would enjoy and you would like it. And yeah, and be courageous. Try to train yourself to not care what other people think. Do what feels right for you, and yeah, just believe in yourself. You are an artist as long as you decide that you are one, and nobody else can decide that for you. So, hey! Okay, well, it was your girl Era. Thank you so much in Bloom Space for having me. This was so much fun. And yeah, I'll see you next time. No, I can't do this. C'est quoi ça?